So recently, my husband, David, and I got into a little discussion about storytelling and the difference between men versus women and how we tell stories. Now, he claims that women tend to use too many details when they're telling a story. But my argument was that it's actually the details that make up the point of the story. If not for the details, you just have a plain old statement, not a story. For example, what if I told you that a former youth once invited his date back to his place to watch old talent show videos from the Garden City Beach Retreat? Now, that might be a funny statement, but I promise you, the story has far more substance. Or what if I just said, a few years ago, a virus was detected in China? Certainly a statement we'd all like to have never heard, but our lives, our stories, we will be forever shaped by that event. And so I think the bigger question here is, why is storytelling important to us? Why do we tell stories that matter to us over and over? Sharing stories connects us with our past and with each other. They teach and they train, and they bring hope and healing. And when we tell these stories, we color them with the details. It's in the details that set the picture that's to be seen. It's in the details that helps us remember. Now, to be completely fair, there may have been a time or two where I've tried to share a story and used so many details that I couldn't even remember which story I was trying to tell. But you get the idea here. Stories are for sharing, and it's our stories that matter. Take this story from Acts 11 today. There are 18 verses full of details for this story. And it's actually a retelling of everything that happened in Acts 10. Without the details, we might only state something like, Peter had a wild night. Or maybe we would just say, outsiders were brought in. Without all the details here, the so what is missing. Peter is in Jerusalem and he is under fire, not from Roman soldiers or foreign kings, but from his own people. You went into the house of uncircumcised men and ate with them, they asked. In the Teresa Dunn translation, we would read, buddy, you crossed a line. But Peter had a vision. A sheet from heaven filled with animals once labeled unclean. And a voice, do not call anything impure that God has made clean. And then a knock at the door, Gentiles, outsiders, asking him to come. As Peter shares the gospel with them, the Holy Spirit falls, just like it had on Pentecost. Peter's conclusion? If God gave them, the uncircumcised or the Gentiles, the same gift he gave us, this holy nation, the Jews, who was I to think I could stand in God's way? Peter thought he understood how God worked. He had boundaries, clean, unclean, Jew, Gentile, insider, outsider. But God interrupted his assumptions. And here's the truth. If we walk with God long enough, we will be surprised and challenged. Comforted and reassured, sure, of course, but also surprised and challenged. Because God's grace doesn't reinforce the walls we build, it knocks them down. Nadia Bolz-Weber puts it bluntly like this. This desire to learn what the faith is from those who have lived it in the face of being told that they are not welcome or worthy is far more than inclusion. Actually, inclusion isn't the right word at all, because it sounds like in our niceness and virtue, we are allowing them to join us. Like we are judging another group of people to be worthy of inclusion in a tent that we don't own. Let me say that last part again. Like we are judging another group of people worthy of inclusion in a tent that we don't own. Peter had to realize the same thing. The church is not his possession, it's God's. And God has given us the gift of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit shows up where we least expect her, in ways that are full of surprises and challenges. This story, these details, beg us to ask ourselves, where might I be drawing lines God never drew? Maybe it's cultural, what worship should look like. Maybe it's theological. Who is it that really understands God? Maybe it's personal. Someone whose life, identity, or past doesn't fit our comfort zone. Peter didn't just have a vision, though. He had a conversion, not to a new religion, but to a broader love. He went from gatekeeper to witness. God's grace isn't based on who's in or who's out, who's right or who's wrong, who has a paycheck or who doesn't work at all, who is humble or who is power hungry. God's grace isn't based on someone's skin color, who they love, or even what they believe. God's grace is for all. Y'all, I'm not making this stuff up, it's in there. God's grace is for all. Jesus said it himself in John 13, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Not by how pure your doctrine is, but by love." And this is not a soft, feel-good kind of love, but it's the kind that crosses boundaries, disrupts comfort, and recognizes the image of God in every person. At the 11 o'clock service, we will witness a baptism. Hallie Warren will be held in her parents' loving arms, and she will be surrounded by this community, and promises will be made, and grace will be poured out. And baptism is that love that comes down when we sing a hymn, much like "Love Divine, Love's Excelling," joy of heaven to earth come down. This baptism is this love that is reaching out before we can even respond. This little one cannot earn God's love, cannot confess belief, cannot recite a creed, and yet we will proclaim she belongs. She belongs here in God's tent. And we do this because God acts first. God comes down before we rise up. This child is a living parable of Peter's realization. Who was I to stand in God's way? Baptism reminds us that we all came in as outsiders. None of us earned our place in this tent. We are all here by God's grace. And we come to this church, to this tent, to share these stories over and over, not as gatekeepers, but as witnesses. And I have to believe this is why Acts 11 retells the story from Acts 10 in such detail. God's vision is of a people that are restored and redeemed across all divisions. Let us not try to fence in a love that exceeds our understanding. The tent is bigger than we think. And remember, we don't own it. So today, may we open our hearts to the wild wideness of God's grace. May we welcome what the Spirit is doing, even when it surprises us. And may we learn with Peter to say, if God gave them the same gift, who was I to think I could stand in God's way? Oh, and as I invite the band to come forward, to come back up on the stage, I realized I never really told you the details of that earlier story. Remember the guy that had invited his date back to his place to watch videos of a talent show? Well, let me tell you the details. So last Sunday, we were gathered at our house. We were hosting the last UMYF. This couple was there. They work with the youth. Caitlin Newman shared with some of the leaders as we were sitting around. She shared that during the dating time with her, early in their dating time, that Lee, her now husband and a former youth, had invited her to come back to his place to watch these videos of the old talent show. She had heard much about youth group. She had heard much about the Garden City Beach retreats. And also from Lee's roommate, Cole Hammock, who was another former youth. Now, I've heard a lot of pickup lines in my day. This one is pretty impressive. You want to come back to my place to watch the videos. Here's the crazy part. She went. She said yes. And years later, here we are. They are married. They have a beautiful baby girl that was just baptized a few months ago. And they are committed to our young people. They work with our youth every Sunday night, connecting with our youth and sharing stories of our faith. Now, I would love to believe that, of course, that all goes to, because it was the Garden City videos. But I am well aware it was not. I am well aware that really and truly, that is the work of the Holy Spirit. And Lee's willingness to be used as a witness. And so I, for one, am very grateful to Peter for being willing to be committed to the retelling of this story in such great detail. And I'm thankful to each of you that are gathered in God's tent today for the retelling of this story. So let me ask you, who's missing? Disciples, let's get to work. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, let it be so.